your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Zac, and Rog.
Yeah.
Hey.
Today we got part one of the Pacific Division Fantasy Preview here. We're going to be talking Kings, Ducks, Knights, and Canucks. It's August, so we're going to start actively recruiting for our listener leagues. If you guys want in on that, we're going to be doing it through Fantrax this year. We're going to be doing slow drafts. Hit us up on Twitter at FHF Hockey. You can hop in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. We hit 1,500 members over the weekend. That's pretty cool.
Woo! Claptracked.
Yeah, even if you don't want to be in a listener league, join the Discord. It's tons of fun. Fantastic resource. But off the top, guys, so we are talking Anaheim, so we're going to talk John Klingberg. He signed in Anaheim. But the rumor is that Nazem Kadri is going to be signing with the Islanders. Lou Lamoriello, famously tight-lipped about everything that comes out of his franchise. So apparently it's already done. That's the rumor. What do you think? I guess we're talking hypothetically here because there's nothing official, but what do you think about Kadri on the island? Is he a 1C? Does Barzal move to the wing? What does the depth chart look like with that?
I don't want Kadri on the Islanders. He's going to get overdrafted for what he's going to score this year.
That was going to be my retort, though, because, the Islanders stink when it comes to draft day. They have that stink about them. Nobody wants to draft them. Kadri might be the 1C where he was the 2C in Colorado, so there might be like a deployment bump that could possibly wash out any regression that he was due. Really hot year. I don't know. I kind of thought people would be, number one, afraid of the regression, two, afraid of the New York Islanders. Those two things compounding, I thought maybe we get a good ADP on him.
So you think he's going to drop just from being on the Islanders? I could see that, I guess.
I think everybody does, except for Sorokin, the only player that benefits from the Islanders. A year from now, we could be talking about Lane Lambert as being an offensive-minded coach. So we don't really know. But yeah, basically, what do you think? Is Kadri the 1C there? Do they go Barzal, then Kadri, then Brock Nelson, 1, 2, 3 down the center? What do you think?
The only place they really have depth is down the middle. And if they have Kadri, they'll have great depth.
Yeah, what's that? JGP is your fourth line center?
Yeah. That sounds pretty fantastic. And that's only if you keep Barzal as a center.
Yeah.
But, who are you going to put him with that's really going to make you say, oh, this, he's going to score points this way? To be able to, last year, I can say these are who he's going to get points with.
Colorado top power play. Yeah, it's right in your face. You know how it's going to happen.
He had 87 points this past year. What do you think that's going to be on the Islanders? Do you think 60, 65?
Well, to start this conversation, you got to say, if he was in Colorado again next year, do you have him for 87?
I have him for 80 plus.
No.
That's rich for my blood.
Yeah, no.
I would have pegged him at 70, 75, putting him in on the Islanders. I'd probably still have him hanging around 70.
He's going to get some of the best deployment with the best top six in the entire league if he was in Colorado.
True.
Who is he going to get the 59 assists from? You know what I mean? That's what he got last year.
You got Barzal,
that's where that 87 points came from, the 59 freaking assist. What? He had one season of 30.
Anders Lee can ring the bell. He can score goals if he's on the top line, if he's that final piece there. Never know. But the thing is, if Barzal does get shifted to wing, more likely that he would be a right wing. So that would be huge too for Barzal. Obviously, we should wait to see if this news comes out. But it was fun talking about a rumor like this. All right, boys. Pacific Division Fantasy Preview starting off in L.A. They finished 14th, 44, 27, and 11. They lost in the first round of the Stanley Cup Final. They were 20th in goals for. Their power play, 27th. This leads me to my question, how do you make the playoffs with such bad offensive rankings. This team was not good offensively. Team save percentage was 19th. Like, how did they get in? Was the West that weak?
It was a surprise, wasn't it? And they played actually really well in the playoffs. Like, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was just going to be, just wiping your hands with them, move on to the next round. And no, they put the screws to them.
I don't have my hopes too high as a team. I think they're better, but like you said, like, how the hell did they do what they did with those numbers? It didn't seem to line up last year. And that's kind of the feeling I have this year. Like, how the hell are they going to do it this year? I think their numbers will get a little bit better overall. To me, last year didn't make any sense.
I think it was just a function of the West being maybe on the lamer side, you know what I mean? Like, they eked out a bunch of 1-goal games. They had 18 1-goal games, which they went 10-8 in. But just looking at their offensive, like 20th in goals for, that's outside of a playoff spot. 27th ranked power play, that's outside of a playoff spot. Team save percentage 19th, that's outside of a playoff spot. It's amazing that they did so well. They finished 14th.
Well, it just goes to show you that, if you can sneak your way into the playoffs, you can make some noise. Any team can make some noise and get on a hot streak and say, you know what, boys, why not fucking us? And that's really what I kind of think happened. But at the same time, I think you're still going to have, some decent point getters. You always have Anze Kopitar, and I feel like a lot of times he slips in drafts for the sole purpose of the Kings aren't what they used to be. And then we get to see what Kevin Fiala is going to do. You have to think he's going to be playing with Anze Kopitar and most likely a Campe, something like that.
Yeah, that's my first line. Who's first off the board in LA in drafts?
I think people think they're fucking savvy, so they're going to take Fiala first. But if it were me, I'd be taking Kopitar first. Even though he's the old man, he always does that, every other kind of season. And not that he had a decent season last year. 67 points, not too shabby. But I think next year he gets a really good, much more. I think he's going to flirt with just under 80.
I'm taking Fiala first.
Yeah, 100%.
Do it.
100%.
Yeah, he was, all of his underlying metrics are great. 8th in the league in points per 60 at 5-on-5, 30th in shots per 60, 39th in high danger chances. He had an 85-point pace last year. Now, the thing is, like, he was playing with fucking Freddie Gaudreau, right? Now he's going to be playing with Kopitar. That's a huge upgrade. And not only that, but it's an upgrade for Kopitar as well, because he was playing with Iafallo, right? So that's an upgrade in and of itself for Kopitar. So I could see an argument for Kopitar's floor raising up a little bit too.
It could work out really well. Like, if they hit it off is the question, but I think they will. Kopitar seems like the kind of player who can probably play with anybody. Like,
he's a team captain. Fiala just had his first point per game season last year. And that he also had his first 30-goal season.
I think he's going to have his second.
Now, I get that he was like, the prior, couple of seasons, he's definitely flirted with point per game. But I don't know. I like them both. It's not that I don't like Kevin Fiala. Like, I'm not, dissing one to take the other. I just have a feeling that Anze Kopitar is going to hit it off next year. Fiala's coming somewhere new. He has to learn. Kopitar's been there for, well, let's just be honest, a long time.
Yep.
So I trust Anze Kopitar more because I know what I'm getting from him. And Kevin Fiala on a brand new team, you have to at least be a little bit concerned. And a lot of times, it might work straight off the bat, but at some point in time, they're going to hit a roadblock. Other than Victor Arvidsson, who else are you going to put up there on top? So, you got that going for you. So you have to think that Fiala most likely isn't really going anywhere.
Yeah. I think what I could see is Fiala is the quintessential second half player. He always starts slow. And maybe if they think that's like a flare in the sky that, this isn't working. His first half this past year, he had a 63-point pace. The second half, it was a 104-point pace this past year. 56 points in 44 games to end the year. So, maybe I think that second line is cut and dry. Like the Moore, Tano, Arvidsson line, that line worked so well. I don't think anything happens to that. If they do wind up changing something up, I guess Iafallo would come up and Fiala would go down to line 3, but I really don't see that happening. I think Fiala's top line or bust here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's full minutes, full deployment for Fiala. I mean, I don't see any other reason why they would have got him. And I mean, he's 25 years old this year, so I think I'm pegging Fiala at 90.
Oh,
yeah,
that is rich.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know about all that.
I do. It's 90 points, maybe 91.
My goodness, that's quite a bit.
I'll take the under. Can I take this one?
Yeah, sure.
Shotgun.
I like 85. I like where he wound up this year, and I think that's, pretty fair to say that's where he winds up again. I used Campe as kind of a boilerplate here. Campe saw 1835, right around the same amount of power play time on ice. I think Kempe's probably going to see the same next year, and I think Fiala probably sees the same time on ice, like right around 18 minutes. So I don't know that there's a bunch more minutes coming his way. What's nice is he's going to have top power play, sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Which is going to be huge. Kopitar is one of the best playmakers in the industry. Fiala, he shoots and he scores. So I don't know. I like point per game. I like 80 to 85 range more than I like 85 to 90. I would love it because you know how big a Kevin Fiala fan I am. But man, that's ballsy to put your name there.
I don't know. I mean, he hit 85 points last year, and I think he's on a much better, much more suitable line where he's going to have much better deployment. So I don't think 5 more points is I don't think it is a big stretch, but it's a damn good season for him.
Much more suitable line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, it was like Freddie Gaudreau and Matt Boldy versus, Kempe, Boldy. I'm sure there's an argument to be had there that they're comparable, but Freddie Gaudreau and Kopitar, that's
not even close.
There's no argument there.
Not even close, yeah.
All right, so we got Kopitar. For him, he's 65 to 70 points, good in face-off leagues, and I do think that Fiala is going to, rising tide floats all boats there. With those two off the board, who do you guys like next?
Next for me, I think I'm between a D-man and Drew Doughty and Victor Arvidsson. Victor Arvidsson likely going to get knocked down to that second power play unit, so I think that hurts him a little bit. But I do like him to, still have that second line time. He's definitely not going to drop into the bottom 6, and I love Philip Tano. So you don't ever have to sell Zac on Philip Tano. And if he's going to be playing, he's going to be playing with him. Number one, Philip Tano can shoot. And he is a great passer. He is great on the boards. He is just a fantastic hockey player. So anybody playing with him is going to get some sort of boost. It's just, in my mind, it's true. So I like Victor Arvidsson here, but I do hate that he's getting dropped down to that power play 2 spot with Kevin Fiala up there.
Well, I think there's 3 potential names that could be on that top power play. I think it could be Kaliev, it could be Iafallo, it could be Arvidsson. So there is a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
I know Daily Faceoff has Iafallo, and I think that's wrong. So for me, it's actually between Kaliev and Arvidsson. We're going to have to wait and see what training camp lines look like and the first few weeks of the season, but I love Arvidsson. Right wing at the end of your draft could be really important. He's got a reputation for high shot volume, so I think, things could go his way. His shot volume went back to his career highs. He had 20 goals in 66 games this year with a super low shooting percentage compared to his own career averages. It was a 25 goal pace, easily could turn into 30 goals if his shooting percentage goes back up. So 34 goal season was his career high, and that was in 17-18. That's a 48 goal pace. It was in 58 games. Huge shooting percentage bender and 19 minutes time on ice. So I don't think that ceiling's there anymore. 19 minutes, just kind of, that's not going to happen. But I think he could hit 30 goals. I do. I'm on Drew Doughty right now. He'd be the next one for me.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
In Cats leagues, man, he's so good. And he's even good in points leagues. He had a 65-point pace this year. He's always right around a hit and a half, a block and a half a game. He's usually pretty healthy. He had a wrist injury this year, but Drew Doughty's so consistent. And he's not flashy, so you can get him kind of late. Where did he go? Pick 80-ish, 90-ish this past year. I love him. He's just value.
Yeah, he sure is. And another guy I know I was really excited about in dynasty leagues, and long-term leagues is Sean Tersey, but I think for now, Doughty has it pretty.
That's low.
He's got it locked down. I don't know why, but maybe it's his face, but I never, like, it's taken me 20 years to come around on Doughty for some reason. I just don't like the guy, but God, is he ever good at kind of like everything to do with hockey. He just does it all, so I'm huge on Doughty, yeah.
Yeah, he chugs minutes, and, like, dude, he's good. He even, like, he shoots pretty well. The PIMs are there.
He shoots almost 3 times a game.
Dude, he's always a target for me because that ADP value is just chef's kiss. It's so good. Love him there. I had Adrian Campe actually above Arvidsson at this point. Led the Kings in goals. Shots exploded from under 2.5, 2.3 to 3.2 this past year, thanks to an extra minute and a half time on ice. Same as Kopitar, the upgrade of Fiala over Iafallo, I think, is going to raise Kempe's floor too. He had a 57-point pace this past year. And I'm curious if, like, 60 to 65 range is somewhere you guys would, like, cut it right down the middle, 62.5 over under for Campe.
Under.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, if Fiala's coming out and scoring 25 goals, I guess there's definitely a possibility for it. But that's your best chance. I mean, you need Fiala scoring, I would say, 25 plus goals for Adrian Campe to get to that 62.5.
I think that's what it would take, and I think that's what will happen. I mean, the big question is Campe was very heavy on goals, right? This year he was taking a lot of shots.
Yeah, so he had fucking 35.
Yeah, 19 assists. So he was definitely the shooter when he was on the ice. So we'll see. I mean, Ed Fiala likes to shoot as well. So is that going to give him another weapon to open things up a little bit more and maybe spread things out a little bit, or does that actually take away some shots for Campe? Either way, I think 62. I think he's going to score exactly 62.5 points.
Great. The push.
I'd go 63 points for Campe.
Okay, so I have, let me just interject one thing. With Fiala on the line, with him, he had well over 3 shots a game last year. Way more than he had ever had in his entire career. Where are those shots going to come from? Because now he's got to give some of them Kevin Fiala, who is also a shooter, who shoots more than that. You know? He's got to give up some of those shots. And he had his highest shooting percentage of his entire career, too. So luckily, it coincided with him shooting more than ever. It went in more than ever. That's where those 35 goals came from. He's not going to shoot over 3 times a game. Do you still think so? I mean, I get it. Kopitar is fine with, moving the puck around and kind of choosing where it's going to go so he can get it to shooters. But Kevin Fiala is going to be shooting a lot more than anyone else was around there. I
do. I think they're both going to be able to hit 3 shots a game. I have no problems there. All right, so Campe had a 47%, 48% offensive zone start. You introduce Kevin Fiala onto that line. I think the offensive zone starts go way up. Fiala's a offensive player. That's what you do. So riding that line in the offensive zone, you got more time on ice then. And you're closer to the net. So I think both of these guys can hit 3 shots a game next year. But those 35 goals, that's going to be tough. Like he leans on goals so much for his points. And I don't know, I'm tempted to take the under, but it's hard. Like, Raj has Fiala at 90 points. You had Kopitar at just under 80?
Yeah.
That's a lot of points. Like, for Campe to not get 62, you have to be actively trying not to.
Kopitar has done that a bunch of times.
Kopitar has been above point per game once, so exactly the same amount of times as Fiala. So I don't know.
It's a fucking blue chip. Into
the streamers, Kaliev, like if he's on top power play, I think that's kind of fun. Right wing is kind of blocked off. You got RV ahead. You got Fiala ahead, so third line looks like even strength deployment, but top power play could be a fun Hail Mary. Raj brought up Sean Tersey. Zach, you brought him up before the show.
Which I'm upset about, actually.
Which one?
I'm upset about. That was cold-blooded that Raj brought up Sean Tersey when he fair well knew that I wanted to talk about Sean Tersey. That was low, Raj. Like you punched me right in the gut there. That hurt my feelings.
I got hurt feelings. I got hurt feelings. I feel like a prize asshole. No one even mentions my
I love Sean Tersey. He's my man. I picked him up a ton of times last year. And, he's always doing something out there on the ice. His first year in the league, he had 19 and a half minutes average time on ice. Come on. 2 shots a game, 2 blocks a game, over a hit a game. Fantastic. I love him. He's great.
He'll still be third pairing.
Don't care.
And, Doughty's not, he doesn't get hurt. That wrist injury was kind of a freak accident. So, and if you're in a very deep league or a dynasty league, it's fun. But I think Brandt Clark is the guy that's coming up, their prospect pool that, power play one of the future. So it's kind of, cap ceiling for Sean Tersey here. Philip Tano, Zach, if you want to take a whack at him, man, he seems like a lock for 50 points for me. Good at faceoffs too. Hits a little bit.
Well, you all know how I feel about Philip Tano.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that one's pretty obvious. I've liked him since, well into his time in Montreal. He had a pretty decent season coming in, but I wish he could get top power play. That isn't going to happen because somebody's got to take those faceoffs on the second power play, and he is very good at them. Like I said, he's just a fantastic two-way player. One thing I do like, however, is he had his highest shooting percentage last year in his first year with the Kings. I'm pretty excited about that. All around, I think it's a good situation for Dano. Montreal wasn't working, and he seems to be doing just fine. I like him a lot, but he's a streamer. You know what I mean? It's not like you're gonna be drafting him. But I'm down to pick him up, and he can easily turn into a hold.
Career high in shots too, 2.5 a game. Career high in goals. A lot of career highs here. First year with the Kings, so
almost 300 shots attempted.
Nice. Quentin, Byfield, and Trevor Moore are the next 2 guys that I want to talk about, and a little less. Yeah, Quentin Byfield, like dynasty, sure. Like I love.
Oh, for sure.
I love how they're grooming him. Like this, slow burn from the third line. It's how I remember Giroux, right? It was always like. Richards and Carter were on the top line. Briere was on the second line, and then Giroux was our third line center. And eventually he becomes 1C, and they're taking the long road. And it's because they can. They have Dano, they have Kopitar. So I love how they're developing him and waiting with him. But Trevor Moore, man, the third piece on that solid third line, 50-point pace this year, good hits, good shots. Just wanted to toss him out there for deep leagues.
That's about all I have. I mean, as far as the goalie situation, I mean, you have Jonathan Quick. I am not a fan of drafting Jonathan Quick. I've gotten burned too many times. I'm not in on that. But oddly enough, I love picking up Cal Peterson.
It was a weird year this year. It was a 60-40 split for Quick. Quick had a 910. Peterson had an 895. And the Kings.
I like Cal Peterson.
I do too. It was such a bad year. Like the team is so good at suppressing shots. They had the second fewest per game in the league. They gave up the same amount of goals allowed per game as Colorado. Their expected goals against is 12th in the league. So it's a good defensive system. Peterson just had a really weird year. Like he took a noticeable step back. And then, Quick found a second wind or third wind or fourth wind, whichever wind it is by now. But it was just kind of a perfect shitstorm for Peterson. This was not the year, so buy low, I guess. The goalie is the one thing they don't have in the pipeline.
Yeah, another case of not a workhorse. Like Quick's still good.
This should be the year. Should be the year that what's his name sees.
Yeah, Peterson should kind of take the reins, but like you said, he didn't trend that way last year. Even though LA did kind of play surprisingly well, I thought, but again, best case scenario, you've got a timeshare of a not playoff team.
I don't know. I think they're playoff bound next year again.
Maybe squeak in, but I mean, then you got half of that. So it's just, I think there's just better options you could find than those goalies.
In terms of prospects, they are flush to the point of, they got to start trading some of these guys like Brandt Clark, Alex Turcotte, Gabe Velarde, Jordan Spence. The list goes on and on and on. So very good prospect pool here. Future's bright. Future is stacked. Anaheim.
Yay, Anaheim.
Yeah. So they finished 23rd, 31, 37, and 14, 24th in goals for, and a very surprising 14th ranked power play, which was better than the Bruins, which was crazy. What sort of season are you guys expecting from Anaheim? Just a thumbs down.
Fat man thumbs down over here.
I want to see some fireworks. I like Anaheim. Screw you guys.
I'm not over the Ryan Kessler Anaheim yet, so it's going to take some time for me.
Dude, I feel like Anaheim made some great moves. I honest to God, obviously we know Trevor Zegras is the real deal. I think Troy Terry is the real deal. And then you go out and you get a Frank Vetrano and a Ryan Strome.
And a John
Come
Klingberg.
on, they got real deep. And of course we didn't. Well, I figured we would get to that. Now they have John Klingberg to take over that first power play, and it doesn't have to be Cam freaking Fowler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I have hated. Like you always see Cam freaking Fowler on the as one of the pickups, and you're like, man, like I really he's out there. He's the power play. Power play one. I should pick him up, and you don't, and you're always right that you shouldn't have picked him up.
Well,
I think John Klingberg is going to do great for that power play.
I think it'll be good. Cam Fowler did lead the team in power play points, which is weird.
Ryan Strome. I'm excited about that.
I have some bad news for you. I'm going to get there. Do you guys think John...
Well, obviously, Ryan Strome is not playing with, fucking Panarin.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. It's like, he's on a worse team. He's got the same deployment on a worse team. He's going to be second line center. He's going to be top power play, but you don't have the New York cast around you. You have Frank Vetrano.
Yeah, no, I agree, but you're not drafting Ryan Strome high. You know what I mean? You can get him at a late round, I guarantee it. On top of the fact that he's a center, and centers are deep. So, I mean, you can wait to pick up a Ryan Strome, but he's a great, 3C to have on your team. I don't care what anybody says.
Troy Terry, 37 goals.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Troy Terry is going to get 37 goals again, but have you watched did you watch any of these games? Troy Terry looks really good. He looks like the fucking real deal. You see him play, and you realize it's not just a fluke. Like he is out there doing those things.
He more than...
I hate to break it to you.
His shooting percentages, it was up at basically 20%, where before that he was hovering between 5 and 10. So that was a wee jump there. I mean, no denying 37 goals. It's a fucking great season, fantastic season. He's relatively young and he's been getting better, but that's it just seems like such a how the fuck did that happen kind of stat. I mean, but I thought was kind of interesting though, he took a big jump in power play points. He was up to 15 power play points over his previous season of 0. That'll help your season. But what was interesting is his time on ice on the power play barely went up at all. It only went up 15 seconds a game, whereas his 5-on-5 time went up 4 whole minutes.
Yeah, he saw a lot more time on ice. First time he ever shot over twice a game,
He did go from having shit opportunities to having really good opportunities, and he did capitalize.
To having all of the opportunities.
It's going to take more than that season to have me buy into 37 goal player Troy Terry, I think.
Saying I've watched him look like the best player on the ice at any given time, on shifts.
When you're on a streak like that, hell yeah, you're going to look great. Like when you're feeling it, you're feeling it. But his, there was that 16 game point streak where he shot 28%. Tale of two seasons here with Troy Terry. He finished at a 73 point pace. His first half was a 76 point pace. Second half, 70 point pace. But during that streak, he was on a 94 point pace. That's 16 game point streak. And, he was kind of carried by that. 23 points out of his 67 came within that wildly unsustainable streak. And then you factor in what did you guys say? He had 37 goals?
37 goals.
On an unsustainable shooting percentage? That's tough. That's some Adrian Campe stuff.
But every single one of these players on these teams, if you are drafting them, you're going to be able to draft them late, except for maybe a Trevor Zegras. And I mean, he's going to be the first one off the board,
Absolutely,
either that or John Klingberg. But like every one of these players, that's what I'm saying. It's not like you're spending it. They're not 8th round picks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're drafting Troy Terry in the fucking like 15th round. Well, actually, he might go a little higher just because he's a right winger. But like Frank Vetrano, Ryan Strome, you're drafting these players later. You're picking up an Adam Henrique off of fucking waivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the confidently rosterable players are like Zegras, Klingberg, and Terry. Like I think Terry is somebody that I'm rostering. Ryan Strome could be, you know, if we want to get into him right now, like, you know, basically it's losing Panarin. That sucks. And he had the 3 years that he was with Panarin, over his last 3 years, he averaged a 67 point pace, and he really doesn't do any one thing incredibly well. Like he's middle of the pack everywhere. Shots, blocks, hits. He's really low in hits and blocks, 40th percentile for shots. And, you take away his biggest argument, which was Artemi Panarin, like exposure to Panarin on the power play and at even strength. And in Anaheim, he's going to get the same deployment. So I'm thinking he's like a 55-ish point guy versus the 65 he was with Panarin. I wouldn't be surprised if the under hit on 55, to be honest. Like Anaheim got better, but they're still not good. They bought John Klingberg to hit the cap floor.
Yeah.
Like they have money. Like they could have gone out and got a Kadri. They could have gotten if they had the draw for it, but they have the money, they have the weapons, they have the prospects. They're set up very well for the future. Just this year is not it.
I'm saying I like the direction that they're moving.
Oh, for sure.
They're moving in the right direction.
For sure. I think, as of right now, I'm not, even in the late rounds of the draft, looking at Ryan Strome.
Oh, I would.
Klingberg, on the other hand, let's dive into Klingberg. Right off the top, let's get how stoked are you guys on Miro Heiskanen right now? He doesn't have a Klingberg to compete with. It's a for sure thing.
I think that's excellent. I think Dallas, I like Dallas, actually. I like a few of their players. I think that's going to be huge for Heiskanen. Heiskanen's another one of those guys where you forget how young he is because he's kind of been a major conversation piece the whole time, but he's still super young. So I think it's going to be I think it's a big one for him. And I do, for some reason, I do feel really good about Klingberg, actually, in Anaheim. I do feel like he's going to be a little better off than he has been. And I mean, he had more power play points than anybody on Anaheim.
Well, I think he had 20,
yeah.
I think, this year. Yeah. And Fowler had like 18. So what I like and is most enticing for me is he just signed up for another contract here. And it's not without a chip on the shoulder. Like he fired his agent late into the offseason, signed with the one team that made sense, like Anaheim needing to get to that cap floor. So he's once again playing for a contract. And there's this whole narrative like he's going to get flipped at the trade deadline. He can go to a better team. And that, I want to go on record saying it now, like I hate the idea of that. Like teams that are buying at the deadline more often than not already have a top power play QB. They're going to be looking to shore up power play too. So if you draft Klingberg, just be aware of that. Like before the trade deadline in fantasy, you should also be shopping Klingberg. If he winds up getting traded, I think there's no way it's going to be a good thing.
That is some very crystal ball down the road sort of shit.
I'm thinking that far ahead already. Teams that are going to the playoffs don't need a power play one quarterback, because if they did, they wouldn't be playoff bound. That's where I'm headed.
I like your logic there. I think that's sound for sure.
I want to talk about Klingberg a little more just as the player. In the last 7 seasons in the NHL, so his entire body of work minus his rookie year, he is 7th amongst D-men in even strength points. Only 6 other defensemen have more even strength points than Klingberg, and he is 8th in power play points in the same span.
He's only had 2 seasons in 8 where he was under 40 points. Miro Heiskanen, who you guys were so hyped about before, hasn't had a single season. Obviously we're hoping for a 40-plus point season from Miro Heiskanen.
I think
that's exciting.
You are going to see, in Klingberg's best year, when he had 67 points back in 17-18, he saw 75% of the power play share. And in recent years, it's gotten closer to like 55, 45-ish. So they're splitting. I think it would be good for Dallas to go back to a 75% share. Number one, like that's when we see Tyler Seguin's best years is when he's getting that much power play time. And that's when we saw Klingberg's. And I think, you put Miro Heiskanen into that kind of role, and it could be huge. There's no way it's not huge. Like, you're the point man on that power play. It's easy to get points. So that's where I'm at there. Yeah, you had 58% in Dallas last year. So 55, 45-ish. There's a lot of streamers on this team. A lot of them.
It is Streamer City.
Yeah. Like Vetrano is kind of a spot starter for me. He's another one that's never hit. I think his best point pace was 40 points. So, his deployment's not going to get any better than it was in Florida, than it was in New York. So, I don't know. Maybe he hits again. But he is
a streaky player. And You're right, he hits. He's always going to give you something. So you have Frank Vetrano. You have Jakob Silverberg, who makes appearances often. I mean, he's in a third-line role now, likely. You have Maxime Comtois, who we've all loved before. So he's part of Streamer City.
I think the only ones that you didn't talk about are McTavish and Drysdale. And I think McTavish, you remember how awesome Blake Coleman was in New Jersey?
You need to see something.
I know. We're going to wait. Obviously, he was a third pick a little over a year ago. But, the sky is the limit. I think he could be that New Jersey Blake Coleman that we were so hyped about, hits, shots, points. I would love to see him hit that kind of fantasy type mold. Klingberg caps Drysdale a little bit. One more year, Drysdale's not going to get the top power play. And there's a guy, Olin Zellweger, who's been closing the gap as far as who is their power play one of the future. So, this year is going to be a good time for Zellweger to close that gap even more. The dynasty outlook on these two guys is neck and neck. There's people on both sides of the street right now. The Zellweger fans are Zellweger fans, and the Drysdale truthers are going to stay in their camp. But Cam Fowler, can we all agree that he's done? There's nothing there anymore.
Sorry, Cam.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cam. I don't hate Cam Fowler or anything, but I'm excited to see something new.
Yes. Yep. That's the perfect way to put it. Okay. Goaltending. John Gibson. Man, he always starts the year strong. And, Anaheim did get better. So, they're not good, but I could see them playing around 500. They could be a winning team. Not much over 500, but they could do it. The split is 70-30. I think you're going to get 50 games out of Gibson. I saw Dauber is really high on Stolarz. Zach, you and I both as Flyers fans have watched Stoli for years. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're so high on him, but okay.
He had a 917 this year, so I think that's where.
But I know what he is.
Yeah, and this is where it is. The games that he saw, the games that were against bad teams, out of playoff teams, he had a 925. Against teams that were good, he had a 906. So there's definitely a disparity there. He's propped up by those weaker teams. But Gibson, you're going to get volume. The first half of the season is going to be really good, and then he just gets tired. I don't know. Klingberg's going to be good for him, too.
Gibson has also never had below a 900. His entire career, never below a 900.
What a guy.
So you know what you're getting. I mean, he's a solid goalie. That was just, he's always been on a crap team. Sucks for him.
All right. Their prospects. Lucas Dostal, Jacob Perreault, Sasa Pastujov, Olin Zellweger. They got quite a few really good guys. And I think who did they draft this year? I think they got a defenseman. I think they got they didn't get Matejchuk. They got the other one, Minchukov. So sweet. Vegas, baby. Vegas! They finished 17th, just out of a playoff spot, 3 points out behind Nashville. 43-31 and 8. They were 12th in goals for. Their power play was bad, 25th in the league. How much of this season can be written off due to injury. It seemed like there was a rotating door, a circle door, if you will, of
Definitely a circle.
Yeah, throwback. A throwback there. But just somebody was always hurt, right? And there was like Pacioretty was hurt, Stone was hurt. Eichel took a while getting back to. So, two questions here, like kind of a layered one. Can we write off Jack Eichel's 60-point pace, and can we write off Vegas as a whole? Because everybody was hurt all the time.
Yes and yes.
I think it's fair.
I think yes and yes. I mean, it was just a shit show, and I don't think obviously the injuries were more than minor. One of their main players was out at all times, and that on top of the fact that Vegas has just been so ruthless about trading, locker room guys. I mean, and not just locker room guys like Marc-Andre Fleury they're
ruthless, man.
You're trading the guy who's got a fucking statue in front of the building and is the face of the franchise. And I mean, that's not nothing. I think it's enough that when the going got tough, a lot of guys just said, fuck off. Like, I'm quite excited about the Marchessault-Eichel combo.
Okay, so you're dead set on Marchessault being up there. Because I was going to get into that. Like, where do you think Cassidy, new head coach coming in, breaks up that misfit line?
Marchessault and Carlson have played together
and Smith too,
so much over the past couple of years.
I know, and it was good for 1 year, but it really hasn't been, right? Like, it hasn't been great.
He's got a point.
But why do you have to break it up?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it is broke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When it's broke, fix it. And it's broke. And Eichel and Marchessault were great together. When they played together, they were excellent. Whoever else is on that line isn't going to take any shots, because between those two guys, there's fucking 650 shots right there. But I hope they keep them together, and I really like it.
What are you not having Mark Stone on that line?
I'd think you would, but...
So that's what I'm saying. So you're saying whoever else is on that line ain't going to get any shots. Well, the answer is likely it's Mark fucking Stone.
Mm-hmm.
So what, Mark Stone isn't getting any shots, and he's, he was their best player?
I think their minutes go up, so everybody will still get like the same per game shots.
Stone wasn't a huge shooter. I mean, he was under 2 shots a game last year, so he's fine to lean on assists himself, and I think that could be fine. And I mean, Stone is the kind of player who does whatever his job is, right? Like, he could be a great passer if his job is to go be a great passer, but he's the type of guy who, if they said, okay, you got to go get 30 goals this year, he would do that as well. So I think if they keep that line together, it's actually going to be really, really good. But there's so many options, right? Like, their top 6-8 forwards, there's a lot of ways you could slice it up, but I think that's what they're going to do, and I think that's going to work.
All right, who do we want to dive into first? Eichel, you got to feel bad for the guy. Like, he wanted to get out of Buffalo because he wanted to taste playoff hockey, and then Vegas misses. It was the first time they hadn't made the playoffs, so that sucks. He lost like 2.5 minutes. Shot rates were still up around 4. I think a lot of it just needs to be chalked up to that injury. He was the only acceptable exception to somebody's got to score. It was the only argument that I would hear, and that was in Buffalo. Now he has line mates, or one line mate, Mark Stone, we can pretty much put down in pen. Stevenson or Marchessault, that'll be the other one. I don't know. Like, what's the chemistry? Is it Marchessault or Stevenson? I think you're right. Like, I want to be excited about Marchessault, and I want it to be that. But that bottom 6 is just such a liability. Like, there is nothing going on there. That's tough.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's Eichel's best ever? He's hit point per game. He got 82 points in 77 games once. He got 78 in 68. I think, his barrel's cocked, and this is the year where he has to come out, and if he wants to be what he thinks he's an MVP, like, he legitimately thinks he's as good as Austin Matthews.
Yeah, he's got to prove it.
Should be compared to. This has to be the year.
Well, if you're gonna be, you have to believe it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm I'm going to give it some risk. I will take some risk, actually.
All right. Let's, Mark Stone, he's kind of like a 70 to 80 point guy. He was 91 points once. That was with Pacioretty. They saw fantastic chemistry, and, he had a shooting percentage bender. He does get hurt a lot. So watch out for that one. I think, Cassidy and Stone, I think that's going to work out really well. Like, Bruce Cassidy has his Bergeron, and it's going to be Mark Stone. So I think he's going to see huge time on ice. I wouldn't be surprised if they both hit 80, him and Eichel. Who do you guys got for power play 1? Theodore or Pietrangelo? I feel like we talk about this every year. This year, more important than ever.
And even though we want it to be Theodore, it's always Pietrangelo.
Well, this year it was Theodore by like 35 seconds. Pete DeBoer had a 50-50 split.
By a skosh.
But yeah, Cassidy leans on power play 1 heavily. That's been his thing. And he didn't like McAvoy because he was a lefty. Shea Theodore is a lefty. He was always in favor of Grzelcyk or who was the other guy? Mike Riley. He just didn't want to put McAvoy up there because of the handedness thing. And I dug into it. Stone's a righty. Eichel's a righty. Marchessault's a righty. Yeah, Eichel, Stone, and Marchessault, those are all righties. Pietrangelo is a righty. So if you got all those guys up there, you only have one lefty. It could be Stevenson. It could be, William Karlsson or Riley Smith. Those are the lefty options. Shea Theodore is also a lefty option. So, I really don't know which way. I think this year is more important than ever to get the right one and to bet on the right one, because I do think we get a true power play 1 this year.
I'll say the exact same thing I said last year. I would pick Theodore. I think it makes way more sense to have Theodore be slightly offensive leaning and have Pietrangelo be a little more D leaning. But
yeah, save his minutes for the defensive side.
That's my theory. I think it's our theory, but it doesn't really seem to be what played out. So it's very close. And actually, looking at our Fantrax leagues, they exactly tied in fantasy points per game as well.
Yeah.
So
Pietrangelo is so useful because he does all the extra periphery. And I think in Cats leagues, on draft day, Pietrangelo could be a huge value. Like, worst case scenario, you get value for your draft pick. Best case scenario, he gets power play 1 and all that peripheral. So Pietrangelo could, his value, his ceiling is so much higher than Theodore's. Like, Theodore's, we know what it is, right? So it's like 55, 60 points with good offensive numbers. Pietrangelo is going to bring those blocks, the hits, the shots, and offensive numbers. So Pietrangelo's ceiling is a lot higher in fantasy, particularly like Bangers leagues or Cats leagues, but
the hype is a little less, right? When he first went there was a lot of talk about Pietrangelo.
Yeah.
That contract and that signing was so huge, and I was worried about him being overdrafted, whereas now I think it's kind of like he's back where he should be, and you might even find him at a value because people have kind of cooled their jets a little bit on the whole situation. And because there's no defined one, like they don't have a number 1 defenseman there. They really tandem those guys.
All right, I think Chandler Stevenson is a streamer level guy. Riley Smith, really vanilla for me. William Karlsson, I don't know what to make of him. What's your read on these guys here?
I mean, you guys always love Chandler Stevenson more than me. If he's not going to be on that top line,
for sure,
then he's definitely losing something for me. I'm not sold on Chandler Stevenson. Now, am I willing to pick him up? If he's just out there available and see how he does, of course I am. But in all honesty, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm kind of I'm kind of tired.
Yeah,
of Vegas,
I think this year is going to be big.
I'm tired of Vegas, and I'm tired of their bullshit, and I'm tired of being disappointed, and that's how I get. I will say I am one of those players. I draft and live my life in fantasy hockey with a little bit of emotion, and they've burned me a bunch. And I'm just, I don't know.
They got
tired of Vegas. I'm not going to draft, a Jack Eichel as high as everyone else. is what I'm trying to get at. Everybody else, I feel like, values.
They got
them
McNabb,
more
Martinez, Whitecloud for bangs on a streamer level. Their goaltending. I feel bad for Logan Thompson. Like he seems like the odd man out, and it's a shame because he did have a strong showing last year. Cassidy's really good for goalies. Like he's great for the expected goals against, the shots against, the goals against. Really good for goalies. So I think Robin Leonard could have a pretty solid showing. If he stays healthy, if he sees volume, he's going to be strong. Their prospects, man, Brendan Brisson, Lucas Cormier, that's about it. They lost Lucas Alvarez to Anaheim. They lost Jack Dugan to the New Jersey. Tough. And, they lost Max Pacioretty for nothing. Like they traded a first, a second, and a third for Thomas Tatar, which they flipped with Suzuki for Pacioretty and then flipped Pacioretty for nothing. That's tough. This is going to be a big year. They got to prove it. All of them, especially Jack Eichel. Vancouver, Raj. We got about 10 minutes here before our mock draft. Yeah. So they finished 18th, 40, 30, and 12, 18th in goals for. They had the 9th best power play. Pettersson looks like he's geared up for a rebound. I'm curious if Miller's ever going to get traded. I feel like they're just going to ride it out. They got to. Quinn Hughes is underrated again. He had 60 assists in 76 games. He was 14th in the league in assists. They added Mikheyev, Ilya Mishiev. They added Andrei Kuzmenko. They added Colin Delia. What's your read on this? Like we know JT Miller. We know Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser. Like what is your read on this year and your expectations?
Well, I think everyone's going to improve except JT Miller because he somehow was unaffected by the up and down season, right? But I don't think the Canucks will be as great as they were for their hot period, but they're definitely not as bad as they were to start the season when they were literally last place. Miller was 99 points in true Canuck fashion. He didn't get 100 in his career year, but I think that's a little hot for him. But Miller's consistently been one of the best fantasy players in the last few years. Pettersson, I think, will finally hit his point per game. I think he's legitimate. I was really, really worried last year, and the fact that he turned it around, and the fact that he turned it around not just by being put next to Miller and kind of being dragged along by Miller, like he really got his points all over the place. He got quite a few points from the third line. So I do believe that Pettersson's going to come back to more like a point per game, not like how Canucks fans were saying he's basically Gretzky and going to have 140 points in the second year. But that's nonsense. But he's a great point per game-ish player, and I believe he'll be there. And the other big bounce back I see is Besser.
Yep. Yeah, I got him here too for a bounce back.
We talked about him before as being he had a real personal year. Like it's a pretty well told story about his family and his dad passing away and how they're such a tight family. And that's legit. Like that's not just a hockey writer story thing. That's like, I feel like that's a real thing in that case. So without trying to be too much of a homer, I do think Miller will come down probably by about 10 points, probably finish like high 80s, low 90s. But Pettersson, I don't know if we're going to get more out of Hughes, though. I mean,
I think, I hate to say it, but I think his ceiling is right where he is right now.
He quietly had a really good year, actually. Like,
he did.
He didn't get much credit.
Career year in hits too. 19.
Like 7, yeah.
19.
19.
Yeah.
Dude, 56 blocks. Like, you shouldn't be excited about that for your best defenseman, but that's a big sign.
He's so
Stop
good in
blocking
points
the
leagues.
puck.
JT Miller, like, he's going in the first round in a lot of our like Cats League mocks that we're doing. Triple threat offense, hits, shots. He's even doing face-offs if your league counts that. Dual eligible most of the time. Like I'm with you, Raj. I don't know if he's a 100-point player, but 90 points I'm pretty comfy with. And then I'm looking at Pettersson here, man. His halfway point, like right around mid-January, he took off 22 points in his first 42 games. Seeing weird bouts of time, like 14, 15 minutes. I assume that's when he was on the third line, like you're saying. And he would see that for like 6 games straight, really strange. But then in the second half, he was just under point per game, 36 points in 38 games. I think we get, closer to 75 to 80 points, I think. I don't know if I'm ready to put him at a point per game, but he's going to be playing next to Jonathan Tanner Miller, so that's good. Quinn Hughes, about an assist a game, which is nuts. I love what you said about Brock Besser, too. Him just being a right wing, that's a bonus in and of itself. He's good at shot volume. The goals could come back. I think this is going to be a bounce back year for him. And Bo Horvat is what he is. What's your take on Vancouver here, Zach?
I wonder about the streamers from last year. So I wonder what Connor Garland is going to be.
Yeah.
I wonder what Niels Hoglander is going to be. And I wonder what Vasily Podkolzin are going to be. So those were three guys that I was, I would imagine everybody else was kind of picking up on the regular. So you think with the additions, or at least the addition of Mishiev, that's going to hurt Niels Hoglander, maybe, but you have to hope that he's on that second line. I know the Daily Faceoff doesn't have him there, but I still see him as a top 6 forward. Do you, Raj? I mean, I like Niels Hoglander.
I like him. Him at his best is a top 6 forward. I mean, he's such a.
So do you have Mishiev there, or do you have Mishiev down in the third?
No, Mishiev will be ahead of Hoglander. Yeah.
It's tough. Like they added this Kuzmenko guy too.
That sucks. That's what I'm saying.
I think if Kuzmenko busts, like if he doesn't hit as a top 6 guy, I think that's when you see Hoglander come in. I think that's when maybe you see a Podkolzin or a Garland come. So it's going to ride on whether or not Kuzmenko pays off. Just had a career year in the KHL, his first above point per game in the KHL. They brought him in, so he's definitely closer. Mishiev on the same team. He's closer to Mikheyev as an import than he is to Panarin. Panarin's hard to fucking say, but if he holds top 6, he could be a 50 to 55 point guy. But his deployment is going to determine a lot of things. The trickle down effect here is huge. Podkolzin, Garland, Hoglander, these guys have that top 6 spot for the taking if Kuzmenko doesn't pay off, or if they just ride Kuzmenko on the third line. It could happen.
We got a lot of 6th, 7th forwards right now.
It's true, yeah. The middle 6 is stacked. And then you got guys like Luke Shen, Tyler Myers, great for bangs, Oliver Ekman-Larsson as a power play 2 option. They added Colin Delia, but I think Spencer Martin is going to be your backup. And I think Thatcher Demko, man, he's just had such an amazing career up to this point. He is solid. And what's scary is he did 64 games last year. I could see him getting even more volume. I could see him pushing 67 just because Spencer Martin is this unproven commodity. You don't have a Halak behind you. You don't have a Holtby behind you. And, just to think about Demko getting that much more volume is insane. He's going to be a very, very highly touted fantasy goalie next year, I think. In terms of their prospects, they got Lekaramaki this year. They got Rathbone. They got DiPietro, but DiPietro is exploring trade avenues because this guy, Spencer Martin, did kind of jump him. I don't know what to make of DiPietro. I've heard Montreal out there, so we'll see. But we got a mock draft in 5 minutes, so we had to wrap up Vancouver here real quick. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add on Vancouver?
I'm sure I'll spend enough time talking about Vancouver.
Yeah, we really didn't need much time in the preview because we're going to cover it forever. All right, so we got part 2 of the Pacific coming at you later this week, and keep an eye out for that one. We're hopping right into a best ball draft. We're going to throw that up on the YouTube. You're not going to find it in the podcast feed, but later on this week you'll find it in the YouTube. We always have Monday mocks going. We have Wednesday mocks. We got Friday mocks. If you guys want to get in for mock drafts, Discord's the place to be. You can get in at any time. So we will catch you next time. Love yous.
Love you.
Love yous.